this today.
All right, all the breaking news. Claudia Cowan, thank you so much. Another alert to tell you about because authorities in South Carolina now poring over 2 pieces of video for crucial evidence in the deadly police shooting of an unarmed black man last weekend. So one clip from a witness recording the shots from the officer's gun. The other, the moments before, captured by the dash cam of the North Charleston officer now charged with murder, Michael Slager.
The car.
Walter Scott bolts out of view after being warned to stay in the car, to be gunned down in the back moments later. Meantime, authorities detaining a passenger who was in the car. As you can see there, that red circle hasn't really been reported yet. Passenger in the car with Scott. Let's take this to our legal panel. Keith Sullivan, criminal defense attorney. Dan Schorr, former prosecutor and associate managing director at risk management firm Kroll. Great to have the both of you here for your expertise on this. So, Dan, let me start with you. This new piece of video from the dash cam. So we can see Officer Slager approaching the car initially, and then he must go back and do business. And you can see then that Walter Scott tries to get out of the car, and he warns him to stay in, and then he runs away. What does this bring to what we already know?
Well, first of all, it puts the later events in context. We know what precipitated the shooting. Mr. Scott runs away from the car. There's speculation it's because there was a warrant for his arrest for failure to pay child support. But in no way does it add to justification for the shooting, because at the time of the shooting, he's running away, he's unarmed, and there's no clear threat to anybody. So this provides a little explanation about how these events developed, but they don't do anything in terms of providing an explanation for the shooting.
But you both agree that there's validity to this traffic stop. There was a tail light out, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, so validity to the stop.
Right.
But Keith, how do you see it with this new piece of video?
Well, the second video doesn't give us the full context, but it puts things in a better context. Certainly the stop was valid. The way he handled the suspect was appropriate. He tried to get out of the car. He ordered him back in. Once he fled, he pursued him. And he didn't initially go to use deadly force. We know that there was a struggle, there was an interaction, which is not on video. And there are differing witness statements as to what took place at that moment. But clearly he announced taser, taser, taser 3 times as instructed by his academy and the police orders.
But then that's when it gets a little dicey, because I want to go over these screens now, these screen grabs from the cell phone video from the witness that we have seen before. So, number 1, Slager, the officer, drops something there. You can see it highlighted, or it falls off of him when they're in some sort of a scuffle. Dan, what do you think it is?
It could be a taser. We don't know for sure, but the crime scene people who arrived at the scene after will be able to develop information and find out what it is. So we are not sure because the video is not clear, but they will know. And then obviously an object is moved later, and that might be part of the officer covering it up.
So let's show the next screenshot here, because this is after Walter Scott is shot and on the ground. Slager goes back to the scene of that struggle that I first showed you, picks something up right there. As we zoom in, could be that same thing that dropped or fell, Keith.
Yep. At the moment of the struggle, there's clearly the officer, when he withdraws his gun, he believes he's entitled to use deadly force, and he may actually be at that moment in time. Unfortunately, once that momentum psychologically is set in place, the suspect detaches himself and begins to run, and the officer is incapable of turning off the switch to not use deadly force.
Is that going to be the defense,
That's going to be a manslaughter. That's not murder. There's no intent.
Well, I disagree. The Supreme Court standard is an officer can use deadly force with a fleeing suspect if there's a reason to believe they pose some kind of significant threat to someone's life or to cause serious physical injury. Based on what we know, there's no indication of that at all.
All right, let's look at the third piece of video here. The Officer Slager, goes over to Walter Scott's body, as you can see here, drops something next to it. Could be the thing that we saw him picking up earlier. Thoughts, Dan?
It could be the taser, and the officer had said in his statements before he knew there was a video that this suspect grabbed for his taser. So certainly moving the taser closer to the body would be consistent with that. We don't know for sure what he dropped there, but law enforcement surely does.
Okay, and then the last piece of video that I want to show, Officer Slager picks that item back up. Keith.
His actions afterwards are certainly troubling. He sprints back to get that item, so it was very important for him to secure it. Now, maybe that's just what it was. He was trying to secure the item. He knows the area is going to get flooded with 20, 30, 40, up to 50 cops in a shooting like this, and he wants to secure the item. Before he drops it, he stands there and holds it for a few seconds and appears to make a phone call. Then he walks over and casually drops it, but then oddly enough, he then picks it up afterwards. So we're not really sure exactly what was he doing. Was he trying to secure evidence? Was he tampering with a crime scene? It really remains to be seen.
Now, at the same time, the authorities down there say body cams are going to go on police officers now. Good idea?
I think there's pros and cons to it. The con is that officers might be more reticent to take necessary aggressive action in law enforcement, but this will definitely lead to more use of body cams because we certainly want bad acts to be recorded. It's a tough decision whether we should use them or not.
You agree?
I think it's a great idea, and the bad acts that I'd like to see recorded are the bad acts of suspects, the things that police officers have to encounter each and every single day that we as armchair quarterbacks sitting in the comfort of our living room watching these videotapes, we get to second guess it and judge it as a Monday morning quarterback. We should see it real time, real live from those body cams and see what those officers are faced with.
Interesting points, Dan and Keith. Thank you. Let's move on to politics now because Hillary Clinton gearing up for a second grab at the brass ring. Multiple sources telling Fox News the former First Lady and Secretary of State will officially